Hello everyone. This is Venus Callida here. I'm using my Logitech microphone today, so please let me know if it's working for you or if not. Usually I would use my more sensitive microphone, but today we're doing things just a little differently. And I need a lot of screens open today, so the big microphone will be kind of in my way. Now, I don't know what's going on at 4:15 when I popped in to do a little chill and chat. My rigging was perfect, and I've come in this evening to do this show, and it's gone again. Now, I know YouTube Studio is uploading a lot of different stuff that's supposed to be fantastic. I don't know how to access any of it. All I know is every time they do an update, or they call it a repair, my stuff gets screwed. I don't understand it, but I know I'm just kind of tired of trying to figure out how to fix it. I don't know what to do. So, I'm here with Raggedy Ann. Yes, I know who you think it is. This is Raggedy Ann. She is from my childhood. She is sweet, she is innocent, and she is happy. So, let's deal with it. And I'm drinking a lot of things that are not water today. Now, it's not pop. I have a lemonade, and I have a peace tea. What was it? Strawberry lemonade? I think so. But I've had a lot of ice water and iced tea, and I had my frappuccino earlier today. So I'm going to drink to your health and mine. I don't know if you can hear this. My ice cubes. I do still have my ice cubes to add water to my diet that way. I know, sloppiest drinker, so that you can share the experience with me. Now, what I'm going to do is this. Today, I just want to remind, because some of my subscribers do tend to come in at the end when I'm about to log out, that once we reach the end of the story, I will not be talking to anyone. I would prefer not to stop the story to talk to people either. I don't want to be rude. I'll try to send a little shout out, but I will be reading. It's a bit of a long one. It's a work in the public domain, and after it's done, we are going to pause for 10 minutes where I will not be answering anyone, because I want that mindscape to happen. For 10 minutes, it'll be a pause with just some background noises, as I've done with my standalone public domain story episodes. So, and then if anyone is still awake and logged in with me after that break, then I will regale you with scary, haunty, spooky tales of things of recent days, if I have any, or we can chat and chill. So take this moment. This is when I started the chill and chats. For those of you who are new subscribers or new followers on Twitter, thank you so much today. For those who are following me on other mediums, just know that I appreciate you. Thank you for giving me your support. And I started the chill and chat, or the tuck-in and chills, because again, if you look at a lot of my early work, it's adult sleep aid videos, adult sleep stories, things to just help you calm down. And I find a lot of people want the ghost stories or the freaky stories, and so I found something I wanted to share, and they do take more time, which is why I'm there are certain days I'll work on memes and stuff when I'm inspired. I haven't done as many short films as I used to do. Hi, Emerson. I wasn't sure if you were still part of our team. I haven't seen you in a while, but we have been checking in on my singing monsters. You do have a monster named after you. How are you doing out there? I'm just about to start reading a story, but tomorrow I will be doing... Hi, Emerson. Tomorrow I'll be doing a guild meeting in the evening, so if you want me to play my singing monsters during the guild meeting, I can do that tomorrow, because I haven't seen you on Thursdays at all for a while. I guess you've been busy. Okay, I hope you've got something to drink, something to snack on. Bye. How are you? I'm good. How are you? I think we have a little bit of a lag, but I'm so happy to see you. I'm glad you're still here. So I've got my snacks. I've got a Kit Kat today. I'm being really bad. And so if you have your snacks and you're comfy and you're tucked in, doing what you do, and have some drinks handy. I've got a couple of drinks handy and a cup full of ice. I'm going to start reading a story called The Werewolf. Oh, let's see how we do with this. All right, here we go. Venus Callida reads The Werewolf by H.B. Marriott. This work is in the public domain. My father was not born or originally a resident in the Harz Mountains. He was the serf of a Hungarian nobleman of great possessions in Transylvania. But, although a serf, he was not by any means a poor or illiterate man. In fact, he was rich, and his intelligence and respectability were such that he had been raised by his lord to the stewardship. But whoever may happen to be born a serf must he remain, even though he became a wealthy man. Such was the condition of my father. My father had been married for about 5 years, and by his marriage had 3 children, my eldest brother Caesar, myself Herman, and a sister named Marcella. Latin is still the language spoken in that country, and that will account for our high-sounding names. My mother was a very beautiful woman, unfortunately more beautiful than virtuous. She was seen and admired by the lord of the soil. My father was sent away upon some mission, and during his absence my mother, flattered by his attentions and won by the assiduities of this nobleman, yielded to his wishes. It so happened that my father returned very unexpectedly and discovered the intrigue. The evidence of my mother's shame was positive. He surprised her in the company of her seducer. Carried away by the impetuosity of his feelings, he watched the opportunity of a meeting taking place between them, and murdered both his wife and her seducer. My mom. Conscious that, as a serf, not even the provocation which he had received would be allowed as a justification of his conduct, he hastily collected together what money he could lay his hands upon, and as we were then in the depths of winter, he put his horses to the sleigh, and taking his children with him, he set off in the middle of the night, and was far away before the tragical circumstance had transpired, aware that he would be pursued, and that he had no chance of escape if he remained in any portion of his named country in which the authorities could lay hold of him. He continued his flight without intermission until he had buried himself in the intricacies and seclusion of the Harz Mountains. Of course, all that I have now told you I learned afterwards. My oldest recollections are knit to a rude yet uncomfortable cottage in which I lived with my father, brother, and sister. It was on the confines of one of those vast forests which covered the northern part of Germany. Around it were a few acres of ground, which during the summer months my father cultivated, and which, though they yielded a doubtful harvest, were sufficient for our support. In the winter, we remained much indoors, for as my father followed the chase, we were left alone, and the wolves, during that season, incessantly prowled about. My father had purchased the cottage and land about it of one of the rude foresters, who gained their livelihood partly by hunting and partly by burning charcoal for the purpose of smelting the ore from the neighboring mines. It was distant about 2 miles from any other habitation. I can call to mind the whole landscape now, the tall pine trees which rose up the mountains above us, and the wide expanse of forest beneath, on the topmost boughs, the heads of whose trees were looked down from our cottage, as the mountain below us rapidly descended into the distant valley. In summertime the prospect was beautiful, but during the severe winter a more desolate scene could not well be imagined. I said that In the winter, my father occupied himself with the chase. Every day he left us, and often he locked the door that we might not leave the cottage. He had no one to assist him or to take care of us. Indeed, it was not easy to find a female servant who would live in such solitude. But could he have found one? My father would not have received her, for he had imbibed a horror of the sex, as a difference of his conduct towards us, his 2 boys, and my poor little sister Marcella, evidently proved. You may suppose we were sadly neglected. Indeed, we suffered much, for my father, fearful that we might come to some harm, would not allow us fuel. When he left the cottage, and we were obliged therefore to creep under the heaps of bear skins, and there to keep ourselves as warm as we could until he returned in the evening, when a blazing fire was our delight. That my father chose this restless sort of life may appear strange, but the fact that he could not remain quiet, whether from remorse for having committed murder or from the misery consequent on his change of situation, or from both combined, he was never happy unless he was in a state of activity. Children, however, when left much to themselves, acquire a thoughtfulness not common to their age. So it was with us, and during the short cold days of winter we would sit silent, longing for the happy hours when the snow would melt and the leaves burst out, and the birds begin to sing their songs, and when we would again be set at liberty. Such was our peculiar and savage sort of life until my brother Caesar was 9, myself 7, and my sister 5 years old, when the circumstances occurred on which is based the extraordinary narrative which I am about to relate. One evening my father returned home rather later than usual. He had been unsuccessful, and as the weather was very severe, and many feet of snow were upon the ground, he was not only very cold, but in a very bad humor. He had brought in wood, and we were all 3 of us gladly assisting each other in blowing on the embers to create the blaze, when he caught poor little Marcella by the arm and threw her aside. The child fell, struck her mouth, and bled very much. My brother ran to raise her up. Accustomed to ill usage and afraid of my father, she did not dare to cry, but looked up in his face very piteously. My father drew his stool nearer to the hearth, muttered something in abuse of women, and busied himself with the fire, which both my brother and I had deserted when our sister was so unkindly treated. A cheerful blaze was soon the result of his exertions, but we did not, as usual, crowd around it. Marcella, still bleeding, retired to a corner. My brother and I took our seats beside her, while my father hung over the fire gloomily and alone. Such had been our position for about half an hour, when the howl of a wolf close under the window of the cottage fell on our ears. My father started up and seized his gun. The howl was repeated. He examined the priming, and then hastily left the cottage, shutting the door after him. We all waited, anxiously listening, for we thought that if he succeeded in shooting the wolf, he would return in a better humor. And although he was harsh to all of us, and particularly so to our little sister, still we loved our father, and loved to see him cheerful and happy. For what else had we to look up to? And I may here observe that perhaps there never were 3 children who were fonder of each other. We did not, like other children, fight and dispute together, and if by chance any disagreement had arisen between my elder brother and me, little Marcella would run to us, and kissing us both, seal through her entreaties the peace between us. Marcella was a lovely, amiable child, and I can recall her beauteous features even now. Alas, poor little Marcella. We waited for some time, but the report of the gun did not reach us, and my elder brother said, "Our father has followed the wolf, and he will not be back for some time. Marcella, let us wash the blood from your mouth, and then we will leave this corner and go to the fire and warm ourselves." We did so, and remained there until nearly midnight, every minute wondering, as it grew later, why our father did not return. We had no idea that he was in any danger, but we thought that he must have chased the wolf for a very long time. "I will look out and see if father's coming," said my brother Caesar, going to the door. "Take care," said Marcella. "The wolves must be about now, and we cannot kill them, brother." My brother opened the door very cautiously, but a few inches. He peeped out. "I see nothing," he said after a time. Once more he joined us at the fire. "We've had no supper," said I, for my father usually cooked the meat as soon as he came home, and during his absence we had nothing but the fragments of the preceding day. "And if our father comes home after his hunt, Caesar," said Marcella, "he will be pleased to have some supper. Let us cook it for him and for ourselves." Caesar climbed upon the stool and reached down some meat. I forgot now whether it was venison or bear's meat, but we cut off the usual quantity and proceeded to dress it, as we used to do under our father's superintendence. We were all busy putting it into the platters before the fire to await his coming, when we heard the sound of a horn. We listened. There was a noise outside, and a minute afterwards my father entered, ushering in a young female and a dark man in a hunter's dress. Perhaps I had better now relate what was only known to me many years afterward. When my father had left the cottage, he perceived a large white wolf about 30 yards from him. As soon as the animal saw my father, it retreated slowly, growling and snarling. My father followed. The animal did not run, but always kept at some distance, and my father did not like to fire until he was pretty certain that his ball would take effect. Thus, they went on for some time, the wolf now leaving my father far behind, and then stopping and snarling defiance at him, and then again, and in his approach, setting off at speed. Anxious to shoot the animal, for the white wolf is very rare, my father continued for the pursuit for several hours, during which he continually ascended the mountain. You must know that there are peculiar spots on those mountains which are supposed, and as my story will prove, truly supposed to be inhabited by the evil influences. They're well known to the huntsmen, who invariably avoid them. Now, one of these spots, an open space in the pine forest above us, had been pointed out to my father as dangerous on that account. But whether he believed these wild stories, or whether, in his eager pursuits of the chase, he disregarded them, I know not. I'm certain, however, it is that he was decoyed by the white wolf to this open space, when the animal appeared to slacken her speed. My father approached, came close up to her, raised his gun to his shoulder, and was about to fire when the wolf suddenly disappeared. He thought that the snow on the ground must have dazzled his sight, and he let down his gun to look for the beast. But she was gone. How she could have escaped over the clearance without his seeing her was beyond his comprehension. Mortified at the ill success of his chase, he was about to retrace his steps when he heard the distant sound of a horn. Ooh, ooh. Astonishment at such a sound, at such an hour, in such a wilderness, made him forget for the moment his disappointment. He remained riveted to the spot. In a minute, the horn was blown a second time, and at no great distance. My father stood still and listened. A third time it was blown. I forget the term used to express it, but it was a signal which my father well knew. It implied that the party was lost in the woods. In a few minutes more, my father beheld a man on horseback with a female seated on the crupper enter the cleared space, and ride up to him. At first, my father called to mind the strange stories which he had heard of the supernatural beings who were said to frequent these mountains, but the nearer approach of the party satisfied him that they were mortals like himself. As soon as they came up to him, the man who guided the horse accosted him. "Friend Hunter, you're out late, the better fortune for us. We have ridden far and are in fear of our lives, which are eagerly sought after. These mountains have enabled us to elude our pursuers, but if we find not shelter and refreshment, that will avail us little, as we have perished from hunger and the inclemency of the night. My daughter, who rides behind me, is now more dead than alive. Say, can you assist us in our difficulty?" "My cottage is some few miles distant," replied my father, "but I have little to offer you besides a shelter from the weather. To the little I have, you are welcome. May I ask whence you come?" "Yes, friend, it is no secret now we have escaped from Transylvania, where my daughter's honor and my life were equally in jeopardy." This information was quite enough to raise an interest in my father's heart. He remembered his own escape. He remembered the loss of his wife's honor and the tragedy by which it wound up. He immediately and warmly offered all the assistance which he could afford them. "There is no time to be lost then, good sir," observed the horseman. "My daughter is chilled with frost and cannot hold out much longer against the severity of the weather." "Follow me," replied my father, leading the way towards his home. "I was lured away in pursuit of a large white wolf," observed my father. "It came to the very window of my hut, or I should not have been out at this time of night." "The creature passed by us just as we came out of the woods," said the female in a silvery tone. "I was nearly discharged my piece at it," observed the hunter, "but since it did us such good service, I'm glad that I allowed it to escape." In about half an hour, more like an hour and a half, during which my father walked at a rapid pace, the party arrived at the cottage, and as I said before, they came in. "We are in good time, apparently," observed the dark hunter, catching the smell of roasted meat as he walked to the fire and surveyed my brother and sister and myself. "You have young cooks here, mynheer." "I am glad that we shall not have to wait," replied my father. "Come, mistress, seat yourself by the fire. You require warmth after your cold ride." "And where can I put up my horse, mynheer?" observed the huntsman. "I will take care of him," replied my father, going out of the cottage door. The female must, however, be particularly described. She was young, and apparently 20 years of age. She was dressed in a traveling dress, deeply bordered with white fur, and wore a cap of white ermine on her head. Her features were very beautiful, and at least I thought so, and so my father has since declared. Her hair was flaxen, glossy and shining, and bright as a mirror, and her mouth, although somewhat large when it was open, showed the most brilliant teeth I've ever beheld. But there was something about her eyes, bright as they were, which made us children afraid. They were so restless, so furtive. I could not at the time tell why, but I felt as if there was some cruelty in her eye, and when she beckoned us to come to her, we approached her with fear and trembling. Still, she was beautiful, very beautiful. She spoke kindly to my brother and myself, patted our heads, and caressed us, but Marcella would not come near her. On the contrary, she slunk away and hid herself in the bed, would not wait for supper, which half an hour before she had been so anxiously waiting for. My father, having put the horse into a closed shed, soon returned, and supper was placed upon the table. When it was over, my father requested that the young lady would take possession of his bed, and he would remain at the fire and sit up with the father. After some hesitation on her part, this arrangement was agreed to, and I and my brother crept into the other bed with Marcella, for we had as yet always slept together. But we could not sleep. There was something so unusual, not only in seeing strange people, but in having those people sleep at the cottage, that we were bewildered. As for poor little Marcella, she was quiet, but I perceived that her trembling during the whole night, and sometimes I thought that she was checking a sob. My father had brought out some spirits which he rarely used, and he and the strange hunter remained drinking and talking before the fire. Our ears were ready to catch the slightest whisper, so much was our curiosity excited. "You say you came from Transylvania," observed my father. "Even so, mynheer," replied the hunter. "I was a serf to the noble house of My master would insist upon my surrendering up my fair girl to his wishes. It ended in my giving him a few inches of my hunting knife." "We are countrymen, and brothers in misfortune," replied my father, taking the huntsman's hand and pressing it warmly. "Indeed, are you then from that country?" "Yes, and I too have fled for my life, but mine is a melancholy tale." "Your name?" inquired the hunter. "Krantz." "What, Krantz of I have heard your tale. You need not renew your grief by repeating it now." "Welcome, most welcome, mynheer, and I may say, my worthy kinsman. I am your second cousin, Wilfred of Barnsdorf," cried the hunter, rising up and embracing my father. They filled their horn mugs to the brim and drank to one another, after the German fashion. The conversation was then carried on in a low tone, and all that we could collect from it was that our new relative and his daughter were to take up their abode in our cottage, at least for the present, and in about an hour they both fell back in their chairs and appeared to sleep. "Marcella, dear, did you hear?" said my brother in a low tone. "Yes," replied Marcella in a whisper. "I heard all. Oh, brother, I cannot bear to look upon that woman. I feel so frightened." My brother made no reply, and shortly afterwards we were all three fast asleep again together. When we awoke the next morning, we found that the hunter's daughter had risen before us. I thought she looked more beautiful than ever. She came up to little Marcella and caressed her. The child burst into tears and sobbed as if her heart would break. But not to detain you with too long a story, the huntsman and his daughter were accompanied and accommodated in the cottage. My father and he went out hunting daily, leaving Christina with us. She performed all the household duties, was very kind to us children, and gradually the dislike even of the little Marcella wore away. But a great change took place in my father. He appeared to have conquered his aversion to the sex, and was most attentive to Christina. Often after her father and we were in bed, would he sit up with her, conversing in a low tone by the fire. I ought to have mentioned that my father and the huntsman Wilfred slept in another portion of the cottage, and that the bed which he formerly occupied, and which was in the same room as ours, had been given up to the use of Christina. These visitors had been about 3 weeks in the cottage, when one night, after we children had been sent to bed, a consultation was had. My father had asked Christina in marriage, and had obtained both her own consent and that of Wilfred. After this, a conversation took place, which was, as nearly as I can recollect, as follows. "You may take my child, Mynheer Krantz, and my blessing with her, and I shall then leave you and seek some other habitation. It matters little where." "Why not remain here, Wilfred?" "No, no, I am called elsewhere. Let that suffice, and ask no more questions. You have my child." "I thank you for her, and will duly value her, but there is one difficulty." "I know what you would say. There is no priest here in the wild country." "True, neither is there any law to bind. Still, Must some ceremony pass between you to satisfy a father? Will you consent to marry her after my fashion? If so, I will marry you directly. I will, replied my father. Then take her by the hand now, mein Herr swear. I swear, repeated my father, by all the spirits in the Hartz mountains. Nay, why not by heaven? Interrupted my father. Because it is not my humor, rejoined Wilfred. If I prefer that oath, less binding perhaps than another, surely you will not thwart me. Well, be it so then, have your humor. Will you make me swear by that in which I do not believe? Yet many do so, who in outward appearance are Christinas. Or Christians, rejoined Wilfred. Say, will you be married, or shall I take my daughter away with me? Proceed, replied my father impatiently. I swear by all the spirits of the Hartz mountains, by all their power for good and for evil, that I take Christina for my wedded wife, that I will ever protect her, cherish her, and love her, that my hand shall never be raised against her to harm her. My father repeated the words after Wilfred. And if I fail in this my vow, may all the vengeance of the spirits fall upon me and upon my children. May they perish by the vulture, by the wolf, or other beasts of the forest. May their flesh be torn from their limbs, and their bones blanch in the wilderness. All this I swear. My father hesitated as he repeated these last words. Little Marcella could not restrain herself, and as my father repeated the last sentence, she burst into tears. This sudden interruption appeared to discompose the party, particularly my father. He spoke harshly to the child, who controlled her sobs, burying her face under her bedclothes. Such was the second marriage of my father. The next morning, the hunter Wilfred mounted his horse and rode away. My father resumed his bed, which was in the same room as ours, and things went on much as before the marriage, except that our new mother-in-law did not show any kindness towards us. Indeed, during my father's absences, she would often beat us, particularly little Marcella, and her eyes would flash fire as she looked eagerly upon the fair and lovely child. One night, my sister awoke me and my brother. "What's the matter?" said Caesar. "She's gone out," whispered Marcella. "Gone out?" "Yes, gone out the door in her night clothes," replied the child. "I saw her get out of bed, look at my father to see if he slept, and then she went out at the door." What could induce her to leave her bed, and all undressed to go out in such bitter wintry weather? The snow was deep on the ground, was too incomprehensible to us. We lay awake, and in about an hour we heard the growl of a wolf close under our window. "There's a wolf," said Caesar. "She will be torn to pieces." "Oh no!" cried Marcella. And a few minutes afterward our mother-in-law appeared. She was in her night-dress, as Marcella had stated. She let down the latch of the door so as to make no noise, went to a pail of water and washed her face and hands, and then slipped into the bed where my father lay. We all three trembled. We hardly knew why, but we resolved to watch the next night. We did so, and not only on the ensuing night, but on many others, and always at about the same hour, would our mother-in-law rise from her bed and leave the cottage. And after she was gone, we invariably heard the growl of a wolf under our window, and always saw her on her return wash herself before she retired to bed. We observed also that she seldom sat down to meals, and that when she did, she appeared to eat with dislike. But when the meat was taken down to be prepared for dinner, she would often furtively put a raw piece into her mouth. My brother Caesar was a courageous boy. He did not like to speak to my father until he knew more. He resolved that he would follow her out and ascertain what she did. Marcel and I endeavored to dissuade him from this project, but he would not be controlled, and the very next night he lay down in his clothes, and as soon as our mother-in-law had left the cottage, he jumped up, took down my father's gun, and followed her. You may imagine in what a state of suspense Marcel and I remained during this absence. After a few minutes, we heard the report of a gun. It did not awaken my father, and we lay trembling with anxiety. In a minute afterwards, we saw our mother-in-law enter the cottage. Her dress was bloody. I put my hand to Marcella's mouth to prevent her from crying out, although I was myself in great alarm. Our mother-in-law approached my father's bed, looked to see if he was asleep, then went to the chimney and blew up the embers into a blaze. Who's there? Said my father, waking up. Lie still, dearest, replies my mother-in-law. It's only me. I have lighted the fire to warm some water. I'm not quite well. My father turned round and was soon asleep, but we watched our mother-in-law. She changed her linen and threw the garments that she had worn into the fire, and we then perceived that her right leg was bleeding profusely, as if from a gunshot wound. She bandaged it up, and then dressing herself, remained before the fire until the break of day. Poor little Marcella! Her heart beat quick as she passed me to her side. So indeed did mine. Where was our brother Caesar? How did my mother-in-law receive the wound unless from his gun? At last my father rose, and then for the first time I spoke, saying, Father, where's my brother Caesar? Your brother? Exclaimed he. Why, where can he be? Merciful heaven! I thought as I lay very restless last night, observed our mother-in-law, that I heard somebody open the latch of the door, and, dear me, husband, what has become of your gun? My father cast his eye up above the chimney and perceived that his gun was missing. For a moment he looked perplexed, then seizing a broad axe, he went out of the cottage without saying another word. He did not remain away from us long. In a few minutes he returned, bearing in his arms the mangled body of my poor brother. He laid it down and covered up his face. My mother-in-law rose up and looked at the body, while Marcella and I threw ourselves by its wailing side, sobbing and wailing bitterly. Caesar. Go to bed again, children, she said sharply. Husband, continued she, your boy must have taken the gun down to shoot a wolf, and the animal has proven too powerful for him. Poor boy, he has paid dearly for his rashness. My father made no reply. I wished to speak, to tell all, but Marcella, who perceived my intention, held me by the arm and looked at me imploringly that I desisted. My father, therefore, was left in his error, but Marcella and I, although we could not comprehend it, were conscious that our mother-in-law was in some way connected with my brother's death. That day, my father went out and dug a grave, and when he laid the body in the earth, he piled stones over it so that the wolves should not be able to dig it up. The shock of this catastrophe was to my poor father very severe. For several days he never went to the chase, although at times he would utter bitter anathemas and vengeance against the wolves. But during this time of mourning on his part, my mother-in-law's nocturnal wanderings continued with the same regularity as before. At last, my father took down his gun to repair to the forest, but he soon returned and appeared much annoyed. Would you believe it, Christina, that the wolves, a perdition to the whole race, have actually contrived to dig up the body of my poor boy, and now there's nothing left of him but his bones? Indeed, replied my mother-in-law. Marcella looked at me, and I saw in her intelligent eye all that she would have uttered. growls under our window every night, Father," said I. "Aye, indeed? Why did you not tell me, boy? Wake me the next time you hear it." I saw my mother-in-law turn away. Her eyes flared and flashed fire, and she gnashed her teeth. My father didn't see this. He went out again and covered up with a larger pile of stones the little remnants of my poor brother which the wolves had spared. Such was the first act of the tragedy. The spring now come on, and the snow disappeared. We were permitted to leave the cottage, but never would I quit for one moment my dear little sister, to whom since the death of my brother I was more ardently attached than ever. Indeed, I was afraid to leave her alone with my mother-in-law, who appeared to have a particular pleasure in ill-treating the child. My father was now employed upon his little farm, and I was able to render him some assistance. Marcella used to sit by us while we were at work, leaving my mother-in-law alone in the cottage. I had to observe that, as the spring advanced, so did my mother decrease in her nocturnal rambles, and that we never heard the growl of the wolf under the window after the day I had spoken of it to my father. One day, when my father and I were in the field, Marcella being with us, my mother-in-law came out, saying that she was going into the forest to collect some herbs for my father wanted, and that Marcella must go to the cottage and watch the dinner. Marcella went. My mother-in-law soon disappeared in the forest, taking a direction quite contrary to that in which the cottage stood, leaving my father and I, as it were, between her and Marcella. About an hour afterwards, we were startled by shrieks from the cottage, evidently the shrieks of little Marcella. "Marcella has burnt herself, father," said I, throwing down my spade. My father threw down his, and we both hastened to the cottage. Before we could gain the door, out darted a large white wolf, which fled with the utmost celerity. My father had no weapon. He rushed into the cottage, and there saw poor little Marcella expiring. Her body was dreadfully mangled, and the blood pouring from it had formed a large pool on the cottage floor. My father's first intention had been to seize the gun and pursue, but he was checked by this horrid spectacle. He knelt down by his dying child and burst into tears. Marcella could only look kindly on us for a few seconds, then her eyes were closed in death. My father and I were still hanging over my poor little sister's body when my mother-in-law came in. At the dreadful sight she expressed much concern, but she did not appear to recoil from the sight of blood as most women do. "Poor child," she said, "it must have been that great white wolf who passed me just now and frightened me so. She's quite dead, Krantz." "I know it. I know it," cried my father in agony. I thought my father would never recover from the effects of this second tragedy. He mourned bitterly over the body of his sweet little child, and for several days would not consign it to its grave, although frequently requested by my mother-in-law to do so. At last he yielded and dug a grave for her close by that of my poor brother, and took every precaution that the wolf should not violate her remains. I was now really miserable, as I lay alone in the bed which I had formerly shared with my brother and sister. I could not help thinking that my mother-in-law was implicated in both their deaths, although I could not account for the manner. But I no longer felt afraid of her. My little heart was full of hatred and revenge. The night after my sister had been buried, as I lay awake, I perceived my mother-in-law get up and go out of the cottage. I waited for some time, then I dressed myself, and I looked out through the door, which I half opened. The moon shone bright, and I could see the spot where my brother and sister had been buried. And what was to my horror, when I perceived my mother-in-law busily removing the stones from Marcella's grave. She was in her white night-dress, and the moon shone full upon her. She was digging with her hands and throwing away the stones behind her with all the ferocity of a wild beast. It was some time before I could collect my senses, and I decided what I should do. At last, I perceived that she had arrived at the body, and raising it up at the side of the grave, I could bear it no longer. I ran to my father, and I woke him. "Father, father," I cried, "dress yourself and get your gun." "What?" cried my father. "The wolves, are they here, are they?" He jumped out of bed, threw on his clothes, and in his anxiety did not appear to perceive the absence of his wife. As soon as he was ready, I opened the door. He went out, and I followed him. Imagine his horror when, unprepared as he was for such a sight, he beheld, as he advanced toward the grave, not a wolf, but his wife, in her nightdress, on her hands and knees, crouching by the body of my little sister, and tearing off large pieces of the flesh, and devouring them with all the avidity of a wolf. She was too busy to be aware of our approach. My father dropped his gun. His hair stood on end, so did mine. He breathed heavily, and then he breathed for a time stopped. I picked up the gun and put it into his hands. Suddenly he appeared as if concentrated rage had restored him to double vigor. He leveled his piece, fired, and with a loud shriek, down fell the wretch whom he had fostered in his bosom. "God of heaven!" cried my father, sinking down to the earth in a swoon, as soon as he had discharged his gun. I remained some time by his side before he recovered. "Where am I?" he said. "What has happened? Oh, yes, I recollect now. Heaven forgive me." He rose, and we walked to the grave. What again was our astonishment and horror to find that instead of the dead body of my mother-in-law, as we expected, there was lying over the remains of my poor sister a large, white she-wolf. "The white wolf!" exclaimed my father. "The white wolf which decoyed me into the forest. I see it all now. I've dealt with the spirits of the Hartz Mountains." For some time my father remained in silence and deep thought. He then carefully lifted up the body of my sister, replaced it in the grave, and covered it over as before, having struck the head of the dead animal with the heel of his boot, and raving like a madman. He walked back to the cottage, shut the door, threw himself on the bed. I did the same, for I was in a stupor of amazement. Early in the morning, we were both roused by a loud knocking at the door, and in rushed in the hunter Wilfred. "My daughter! Man, my daughter! Where is my daughter?" cried he in a rage. "Where the fiend should be, I trust," replied my father, starting up and displaying equal choler. "Where she should be, in hell. Leave this cottage, or you may fare worse." "Ha ha!" replied the hunter. "Would you harm a potent spirit of the Hartz Mountains? Poor mortal, who must needs wed a werewolf? Out, demon! I defy thee and thy power. Yet shall you feel it. Remember your oath, your solemn oath, never to raise your hand against her, to harm her. I made no compact with evil spirits. You did. And if you failed in your vow, you were to meet the vengeance of the spirits. Your children were to perish by the vulture, the wolf. Out, out, demon! And their bones blanch in the wilderness. Ha, ha, ha!" My father, frantic with rage, seized his axe and raised it over Wilfred's head to strike. "All this I swear," continued the huntsman mockingly. The axe descended, but it passed through the form of the hunter, and my father lost his balance and fell heavily to the floor. "Mortal," said the hunter, striding over my father's body, "we have power over those only who have committed murder. You have been guilty of a double murder. You shall pay the penalty attached to your marriage vow. 2 of your children are gone, and the 3rd is yet to follow, and follow them he will, for your oath is registered. Go. It were kindness to kill thee. Your punishment, that you live." Well, everyone, I see that. Oh, I just lost the viewers. I had 2 people online just now, and I was getting ready to just chill with you guys. But I will answer the question. So for some reason, whenever I try to sign in to be able to type back at my viewers in moments where I don't want to speak and interfere with the focus. So the thumbnails lately, what I've been doing is just taking a piece of one picture that I clipped into the wider pictures that I'd been making. And hello, Hero Flame, how are you? It says that there are 0 viewers here, so I'm so glad someone is here. And we've reached the chat part, the chill and chat part of our evening, so we can chat. But I wanted to explain that lately I've been taking a piece of a picture of a thumbnail that I used to build one of the pictures in the scene for the episode, and then I go back and replace the thumbnail later once everything is processed and I can pick a screenshot from the actual show. Here, were you able to see or hear any of the story this evening? Hopefully I put Emerson to sleep. But that's to answer Emerson's question. I tried to type it, but it's not letting me get through. It always says my password's wrong, but my password is right. When I go in regularly through regular Microsoft channels, I can get in no problem to my thing. So I don't know why it's a block, it's a glitch keeping me out of, oh my goodness. So, well, okay, I'm going to show you guys something from my story. You're going to see a picture I didn't use. Oh, also to explain, most of the pictures or pieces of pictures were taken from using Deep AI. So I'm the creator, I guess. My prompts are what created it. Let me get in here for a second. I'm going to show you. So the woman that's bending over, that is a piece that I clipped, and I put it. Let me see her screen. I do this. Okay, so let me bring this up in a slideshow mode. I'm going to show you guys what I did. So these are mostly, not all, but mainly things that I made. The backgrounds are made with the Deep AI. This I just made it, I took it like 4 different times and I made it 50% see-through, and to try to show that it's a ghostly thing. And so these were all Deep AI, so my prompts, and then a little bit of clip art for the not so subtle blood, so clip art with the stones. And I just kept changing the different, I was adjusting the different things. I know in the odd time, okay, this we know I didn't draw that. And again, I'm taking pieces of other things, so we know I definitely didn't draw that. And I will put the information. Hi, Cyanritan. Hi, how are you? This is my most spicy thumbnail, but I'm just to show you. So this is all from the Deep AI, and I just keep clipping and changing the sizes of. So here, when the children in the story are spying on this new wife, this new mother-in-law, this beautiful blonde, she's burning the clothes to hide the fact that she's going out hunting at night when the father's asleep, and the kids have figured it out that she's going out and doing something, but she's burning her night clothes to hide that they're covered in blood. And the kids figure this out, but they don't know how to tell their dad. So obviously I put a blonde wig on her, which was clip art, and I doubled something and I switched it into different directions to cover the brown hair that you see in the thumbnail. But I just, whatever was the first thing I saw in a thumbnail from my downloads after I removed backgrounds, that's what I had. And I just went with it. It took me 2 days to do all the pictures for everything. And there's some things that are clip art that I blended in, and then I tried to sepia on them, like these kids in the foreground, which you see a couple times. I'll flip pictures to the other direction just to get more use out of them. And I sepia it, I changed it. But yeah, so this, if you take away the blonde wig, was the lady that I used in the thumbnail hero, and that's what Emerson was asking about. So she's burning evidence. It's not a sexy thing. But you're seeing her back end. So I hope you guys had a chance to see this story. Probably you didn't. You might be just checking in now. But this is our chill and chat part of the thing. But if you saw, yeah. So that's the same blood I used on that other mouth. I just clip art a bit. So it's stylized, I suppose, but the main thing, see there's little kids again, flip them the other way. Deep AI. For the most part deep AI, and I clip arted some stuff. Deep AI again. Two different styles within the deep AI. I like the elephant face, but she won't give you scenery. Then I use this other thing for the scenery. I keep reusing stuff because I only have so much time. This was a big one. But all in the public domain. Except for that couple of anime shots, which I will go back through my episodes once this is done, and I will definitely put the credits and stuff in there once I get a chance, because yeah, I didn't have time between finishing the last screen and you guys, so yeah, I just want to make sure. So once again, like at 4:15 when I went online for a quick little, I don't know if you got to see my new chibi comic strip. It's a 4-framed one of Venus at the Beach, because today is Seashell Day, National Seashell Day in the States. And I had some seashells, so I went off to Starbucks today and I sketched my seashells, and I had an inspiration for Chibi V at the beach. Listening to seashells, they will become a soundscape for the sea, which is supposed to be just another relaxing video. And as you can see, my rigging's gone again, and I do not know how to get it back. It is very frustrating because every other day that I log in, there's no rigging. And the rigging was fine at 4:15. I turned it off and come back, and no matter what I do, I can't get the rigging going. So I figured out how to at least make the mouth move, but she looks like she's a fish, and I don't want people thinking dirty things, right, heroes? So I stuck a pop can in front of me, and we'll just say that I'm sipping on my drink. But if you can hear my glass of ice water, I will drink to your health and mine. And beside that, I also have a cup of lemonade. It's the peach tea strawberry lemonade. I do like it sometimes. I like the raspberry. I like cheeky cherry. I like cherry and lime, like a lime Rickies. More into iced teas now, but I want to eat less and drink more when it's a hot day. Yeah. So how are you guys doing? How's your week been going? I'm actually going to do a guild meeting tomorrow. We're very close to having 200 people, and it looks like new people are following me, although I think it's through Twitter and it's not following on YouTube, but I haven't checked yet. Maybe you guys have seen, but I'm going to check later. I'm hoping we hit 200 by tomorrow. That would be really nice. And here, I don't know what to do about it, but I'm going to have a guild meeting to just, like, you know what I usually do at guild meetings. Nobody really watches them. But if anybody's online live by the time I get to the open forum part, we can chat then too. Is there anything you guys want to see me do today? This is Raggedy Ann. She is not Annabelle. Do not let that movie ruin my childhood doll. She's good. She's good. She's not creepy at all. Come on. Is there anything you guys want to talk about before we head off and try to get some sleep tonight, or? Sorry, and I'm hoping you're proud of me for Chibi V Goes to the Beach. I know I haven't developed these in good copies yet, but I'm a beginner and I'm scared. So I think I'm going to make some photocopies of my sketches and then try coloring them in. Like I can't do the computer thing. The Wacom thing doesn't work for me. I'm not trained on the computer thing that these artists do. So I'm going to do it all by hand, and it's going to be very babyish. Ready for bed. Oh, then my job is done. Yay. Well, I hope there's a bedtime listening thingy that I made for you that, I don't know, is there any one of them that you ever use to help you get to sleep? The Office one? Oh, I'm so glad you're happy. That's wonderful. It's the first day of summer, so welcome to summer. I'm so glad all my regulars were here today. And guess what? Emerson is still here. I didn't know if they were still in our guild because we had stopped playing my monsters for a little while, but I'm going to bring back my singing monsters. We've got some babies that have hatched, and Hero Flame and Tishy Adams' baby there, it's winning singing sing-offs in the Coliseum, so yeah. So you guys will see that I've started to go onto Twitch a little, and I'm starting to, I don't like dividing my time. I wish I could do the streaming at the same time, but you have to pay for that. So until I monetize, I will not be paying for that, but it will be so nice once I monetize, then I will be doing that. And then you're going to be seeing me gaming for 2 and 3 hours at a time like I used to do way back when. I'm trying, and I am learning, and I just need some time. I found that I need a particular space to have the feel to draw, and then I do much better. And I watched a couple of people like stop and look at what I was doing, and one guy came back and looked twice. He was a teenager, so I'm figuring that's a good sign. That's when I was whipping up the Chibi V at the beach one. I really like it. I was inspired by the seashells. And I think it's cute, so I hope if you didn't get a chance to see that you'll take a look at that. And geez, you know, there's so much that I have booked in for this summer. And I think I decided I am going to go to the Comic-Con in Toronto. There's so many mini-cons all out there nowadays, but most of them are in gyms. It's just buying stuff. I like to go to the things where there's stuff to do. But with everything, they just say do it and learn later. So that's what you guys are going to see me do. I'm going to grow. And I'm hoping I can monetize. I do have to get a hold of Eggy La Felina because she was one of the panelists that had some great stuff to share, but because I don't have a smartphone or a QR code, I couldn't get it. So I'm trying to get a hold of her in Twitch. I do now post one thing in Instagram a day and one thing in Twitch a day at least. Twitter, not Twitch. But once in a while I'll go into Twitch a little. They say to stay in there for 2 hours gaming and stuff, but I don't want to spend 2 hours there when I'm going to spend 2 hours here. So that part's a little hard for me. Why I resisted last year. I remember that I made that choice, but I think to grow, and I'll have to put something on TikTok every day. And I finally unlocked the thing so that people can maybe see me there. And I've learned that once an hour, not more, is one of the tips I got from the panelists this last weekend. I'm so glad I went to YetiCon. I almost didn't. I'm so glad that I did. Lots to learn. Okay, while you guys are still here, you have to vote for me. Do I keep doing the boop the nose memes, or should I cut that out? Because I could make more, or I should stop. I don't know whether it cheers people up or not. I think it cheers me up, and it's cute, but I don't know how you guys feel. Also, I'm trying to do some memes that involve Lamborghinis whenever I can because they seem to be popular. I know I need to do gamer memes more often because some of the ones I've done are good. And I like them, but I just have to have my head in the right headspace. And my head is very divided right now. I do have a surgery coming up that may affect my ability to speak, and I may be lisping if I speak at all in July. I'm going to put up a thing I'm going to make things that are pre-made to run for me during that time. And I don't know how I'm going to be feeling. They've run their course. Okay, they're going to be done at the end of the month. So what would you like to see memes about? And I know I should try to make some Giphies using the things I've drawn with GBV. They're not going to look the same as other artists out there who can draw like my avatar with their computers, but we'll see what I can do. I mean, the potato's popular out there. He's not all colored in. Thank you. I'm a little scared. There's a little bit on the line this time, and it will affect my ability to speak. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. Little nervous, but it's still a few weeks away. There's so many events that I have to do, so I'm gonna be away in the first week. So, the week between Canada Day and July and the American Day. What is it? July the 4th. What do you guys call it? 4th of July. I'm gonna be away. So I'm gonna pre-make stuff for that. I have no choice about that. It's a work thing, and then and then 2 weeks later, is it 2 weeks later or a week later, I have the surgery. So interruptions, but I'm in that time, might be using that time to actually develop my drawing, and work on making my own chill hop beats. I'm still, that was my first goal ever, and I never ever got around to it. I haven't finished my night course either. I have to do that. Is that copyright if I do that? Like taking Giphies? Well, I guess I've kind of already been doing that. Which is why Hero Flame guilted me into drawing my own. And I know you support me drawing my own, so work on it. Okay, Siren Tam. What is it, the thing that you do that makes you lose your sense of time? What is the thing that you're doing? It used to be swimming for me, or gardening, or dancing. What is it for you? No, at least my avatar can blink while we sip on our drinks together. Well, I haven't come up with a story in a cave yet, but I'm going to work on that. I think I'll have to do some cave memes for Hero Flame until I can find a story in a cave. But hey, I had a story in the mountains. I'm getting closer. This story was set near mines, while the story was not about the mines. What else can we chat about? What are you in the mood, or are you ready to fall asleep? Hey, how'd your interviews go? Did you start a new job? I wish you good luck with that. Exercise. You want me to exercise with you? I could do more follow me for eyeball exercises. I don't know if anyone ever liked those, but I really did try to do a good job with that. I thought it was funny, but I don't know if anyone uses it. I don't think anyone uses them, but I did try to do that. You have an electric skateboard, so you stand on it and it does the pushing for you. Oh my goodness. Does it have this stick that you hold on to with your hands, or is it just the board? Okay, I have to know, do you still look like a teenager? Do you wear like the baggy pants or the long shorts? Like, do you look like a surfer dude? I'm trying to picture your style. I saw this guy who was naturally over 6'2" on his own, perfectly fit, and he was dressed as a Hooters girl, and he was up on rollerblades. There was a few people on rollerblades at the con, and he was standing beside me. I'm 5'2". I'm looking up at him. It's not my fault that my eyeballs are right where his ripped stomach was, you know? Oh, I think it's really cool that you're you're a skateboarder. I was interested in like snowboarding. I had a banana skateboard. It was yellow, and it was small. It was skinny before those big fat ones came out, which I think is cheating. But anyways, but they're the pre-snowboard boards. I think that's really cool. So exercise. Genuinely, you enjoy exercise. Wow, that is good. Never lose that, because in your 40s, you're going to appreciate it if you, in your 30s, don't get lazy about it. That'll be important for you. And when you're 50, you're going to really enjoy it because everybody around you is going to enjoy it too. But skateboarding, I can see that because when I would be on a skateboard or a scooter, I just love the wind rushing past, you know. And I like getting airborne a little bit too. That's always fun. It's the landings that always made me nervous. I worried about my ankles. All right. Thank you, everyone that's come out to support me today. I hope you enjoyed the story. I hope you enjoyed the visuals. I know they're a little different. I'm using whatever I can use for free. And I try to make them a little bit original every time. And I hope you like the chat. Have a good sleep. Don't forget to hydrate since you're going to bed. But it's fun. All right, I'm raising my glass. I don't know if you can hear my ice cubes. Here's my cup. I'm raising my glass to all of your health and mine. Have a wonderful weekend. Welcome to the weekend, baby. Hopefully you don't work, and if you do work, may your boss not be a jerk. And may you get all your lunches to have lunch. All right. Cheers to everybody. As sloppily as I can so you can enjoy that with me. I've been putting a little too much lemon in my lemonades lately, but that's all right. It won't kill me. All right, I'm going to wish everyone a wonderful night. Have a good deep sleep, a restful sleep, breathe well. Oh, then I did my job. Good night and sweet dreams. I actually had a really weird dream, but I'll tell you about it some other time. I don't want to keep you up if you're ready to sleep. La 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 la. La 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 la. I can't sing. Oh my goodness. La la la. La la la. La 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 la. Hello, Kendall lover. How are you today? We just put Cyan to sleep. Good night, Kendall. I'll have a guild meeting tomorrow night. And if anybody wants me to do some gaming with them, then I can. Cyan is sleeping. Such a sweet little skater boy. Kendall, thanks for stopping by. Did you get a chance to see some of the story? If not, I'll be live again tomorrow night. Just take a look at our schedule. And Kendall, before I go, is there any kind of meme theme you want me to explore? Also, I fed your monster in the My Singing Monsters game, the one named after you. I did that yesterday. She's gotten quite big. Who's still here? Is Cyan gone? Is it just Kendall out there now? Or is it Cyan fast asleep? Okay. This is Venus Callida, ending another round of Tuck In and Chill. If you have a favorite kind of a story theme you'd like to hear about, please put it in the